What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. And in today's video we've got another tier list. Of course, we're going through the best fighter of 2023. Obviously a bunch of fighters fought this year. No shit, it's the fucking UFC, what am I saying? But there were certain fighters that had great years, there were certain fighters that had shit years, and there were certain fighters that just had some pretty mid years. You know, they just did whatever. They fought and they won and they lost and that was whatever. But we're going to be kind of differentiating all of them, ranking them on a tier list. I've got the top tier, which is for one man and one man only, as the fighter of the year. Then I've got great year, breakout year, good year, and then a rough or like mixed year for those that just had a pretty tough time in 2023. But I've got a bunch of fighters. I think I've got 30 different fighters here. So of course not all of these are actual nominations for fighter of the year, but it's just to, you know, make the tier list. You got to get different tiers for a reason. You can't just put everyone in great year that won every fight they fought this year. So that's not how it works. But we're going to start off with the first individual, and I'm going to start with Jailton Almeida. I'm going to put him in breakout year. This tier is pretty much for non-championship fighters that fought at least twice. They have to have fought twice, really, and that were either unranked or not really in the big picture, and then they won a couple fights, and now they're in the big picture. Like Jailton Almeida, at the start of the year, unranked, he was definitely a prospect, but he starts off the year beating Shamil Abdurrahimov, then he beats Jairzinho Rosenstrike, then he beats Derek Lewis. He went from unranked to number 7. Pretty solid year for Jailton Almeida. The Lewis performance was a bit stinky, but still, if you go from unranked to number 7 in a year, then that's got to put you in breakout year for Jailton Almeida. Another fighter that had a good year this year was Dricus du Plessis. I'm going to put him also in breakout year, right at the top though, because this guy was borderline great year, but most of the fighters in great year, I think actually all of them are probably going to be the champions that don't get fighter of the year, just because I've got to rate title wins over 2 different contender wins. But this guy, I think he was like number 10 or number 11-ish at the start of the year, coming off that win over Darren Till. He starts off the year in March, beating Derek Brunson. Pretty solid performance, but looked pretty shit, to be honest, because the cardio was still a problem. But then he turns around in July and TKOs Robert Whittaker in the second round, which is probably the best non-title win of the year, I would say. I can't think of anything better than that this year that didn't win a fighter a belt. So Dricus du Plessis, definitely a breakout year and a great year for him. But another fighter that we have to go through is Tom Aspinall. He's going in great year. Obviously, Tommy Aspinall came back after that injury against Curtis Blades. TKO'd Marcin Tybura inside a minute and a half. Got it done in like a minute 13 seconds and his comeback in London. Great performance. We thought that was going to be it for him for the year. Well, there was like, he would have probably been in good year if that was it. But then he turns around on short notice after Jones gets injured and beats Sergey Pavlovich on short notice. KOs him in just over a minute. So incredible stuff, wins the interim belt, and a lot of fans are now viewing Tom Aspinall as potentially the best heavyweight in the world. And now there's a kind of rumor going around, or there's talks going around that John Jones is ducking him. So I'd say Tom Aspinall had a pretty fucking good year. But we move on to another fighter that had a decent year, and I'm going to go with Jessica Andrade. She's going to go in rough/mixed year. Look, I want to include a few females, like we're being inclusive here, but Andrade started off the year by 30-24ing Lauren Murphy. I know the scorecard wasn't 30-24, but like she beat the fuck out of Lauren Murphy, made her look somehow more ugly than she already was. Then she turns around a month later on short notice, loses to Erin Blanchfield. Then she comes back in May, gets KO'd by Yan Zhanan. Then she comes back in August, gets subbed by Tatiana Suarez. So she's looking like she's having a fucking shocker of a year. But then she comes back in November and stops the hype of Mackenzie Dern and TKOs her in the second round. So she started and ended the year well, fought 5 times. So you got to mention her even if she didn't win all of those fights. But if you fight 5 times, you got to get mentioned. Started off the year amazingly, ended the year amazingly, but had a pretty rough patch in the middle. Was on a 3-fight losing streak. But another fighter that deserves a mention for fighter of the year is Brendan Allen. He's going in breakout year. And I'm going to actually put him above Jailton Almeida. Because obviously Almeida's wins are probably more well known, like people know Lewis more, but Brendan Allen started off the year by taking a main event spotlight after the main event got cancelled, and then ended up fighting Andre Meniz, subbed him. Then he turns around in June, fights Bruno Silva, knocks him down and then subs him in the first round. Then he turns around and main events in November against Paul Craig and subs him in the third. So great year from Brendan Allen. He went from unranked to I think he's now number 8. So he's one spot lower than Gelton Almeida, but I just rate his wins a little bit higher. He got 3 finishes, 3 submissions. Almeida got a TKO, a sub, and then a boring decision. And they were all over fat men. But Allen was actually beating good competition. So we're going to move on to another fighter, and I'm going to go with Justin Gaethje. He's going in great year. 2 wins, 1 finish, 1 KO of the year candidate against Dustin Poirier, and then one of the fights of the year against Rafael Fiziev, who he turned back. Everyone said he was ducking, like refusing to fight the top 5 guys. Sorry, guys outside the top 5. Fights Fiziev, beats him 2 rounds to 1 in a close decision. Great stuff. Then he turns around and beats Dustin Poirier by head kick KO for the BMF belt, and now is set up for a title shot next. And I do think it will actually end up being him that gets the title fight next against Makhachev. But great year for Justin Gaethje. We move on to a fighter that didn't have such a great year. It's Beneil Dariush. It's tough. He went 0-2. He's had a rough year. Started off the year, like he entered the year in incredible form on like an 8-fight win streak. He was 1 fight away from a title shot. Maybe if the cards fell right, he could even get a title shot. And then he fights Charles Oliveira in June, gets TKO'd badly, straight to the back of the line. Now you got to fight way down. He fights like the number 10 ranked Arman Sayukian and then gets KO'd in a minute. So it was a really rough year for Benny Dariush. He went from 1 fight away from a title shot to now looking like he's about to go on a Tony Ferguson skid. So that's a tough one for Benny Dariush. I like the guy, but let's be honest, he's probably going to get fed to Bernard St. Denis next, and he's going to get assaulted. But speak of the man, Bernard St. Denis, he's going in breakout year. And again, I'm putting him above Almeida. Not because he's higher up in the rankings or because his wins are better, because he only beat 1 ranked opponent, but I think the impact that this guy made really, like, he put himself majorly in the spotlight. He entered the year coming off a good win against, Gabriel Miranda at UFC Paris in 2022. Then he doesn't fight until July. Fights Ishmael Bonfim. He was going to fight Vince Pichel, who in hindsight he would have absolutely murdered. But then he ends up fighting Ishmael Bonfim on short notice. Subs him in the first round. Derails that hype train. Incredible win. Turns around 2 months later. Fights Thiago Moises in his home country of France. And TKOs him in the second round. Incredible win. Then he turns around another 2 months later. Fights number, I think, 14 ranked Matt Favola in MSG on a pay-per-view main card and head kick KOs him in a minute and a half. Incredible win, and now he's looking towards a top 10 opponent next. And I would be shocked if he didn't end up fighting a top 10 guy next. Amazing stuff. Great year from Bernard St. Denis. Put his name on the map majorly. Made a big statement. But the only rough thing to come out of this is that he's probably not going to have the easiest time finding guys to step in the cage with him, because I think he's going to be a major problem. And definitely, I think by the end of next year, we're talking top 5 for Bernard St. Denis, in my opinion. But another fighter that had a good year is Jack Della Maddalena. I'm going to put him in good year. Look, I know you could say breakout year because he did enter the rankings and all that, but I feel like Della kind of made more of a splash last year, if you know what I'm saying. Like, this year it kind of just seems like status quo. Like, everyone's like, oh, it is just slowly climbing. But last year, he came in and got 3 finishes. Like, he finished Pete Rodriguez, finished Ramazan Ameev, and then finished Danny Roberts, all by TKO in the first round. So that was like looking like there's no way he's going to top that. And he kind of didn't, because he came in, got a great win over Randy Brown. Then he was set to fight Sean Brady. And if he'd won that, that would have really been him in that breakout year spot. But he fights Basil Hafez and wins a close decision. Then he wins another close-ish decision over Kevin Holland. So despite the fact he did break into the rankings, so you could qualify that as a breakout year, I think just he didn't really make as much of a splash. Like, no one's talking about Della as like, geez, look at this guy. Like, end of last year, everyone's like, this guy's a problem. He's being top 10 next year. He is almost top 10, but now he's booked to fight Gilbert Burns. So to be honest, you could have him breakout year. I don't mind it, but I don't want to put too many people in breakout year, because as you can imagine, there's a lot of people in that tier. But another fighter that we have is Ian Gary. I'm going to put him in breakout year. Look, in terms of the publicity and the talk going around him, probably a rough year for him. But in terms of just what he got done inside the octagon, it was a great year for him, or breakout year, you should say. Entered the year unranked, coming off like kind of dead decisions. Didn't have a heap of hype around him. Like, he had talk around him, of course, but then he fights Song Kanan on UFC 285. TKOs him in the 3rd round after getting dropped, so it was like a little bit iffy. People weren't too high on him. Then he beats Daniel Rodriguez by KO in the 1st round, head kick, TKO. Great win. Then he fights Neil Magny, makes a fool out of himself during fight week, but ends up getting the 30-24 decision. And then he was going to fight Luque, but pulled out. So if he'd fought Luque, that definitely would have cemented him. But he went from unranked to number 10. So it's a great year for Ian Garry. Inside the octagon, outside the octagon, tough one. At home life, tough one. But inside the octagon, you got to give the man credit. Another fighter that had a good year is Max Holloway. He's going in good year, of course, because you can't put him in breakout year. Obviously, he's been around for fucking years. But yeah, he had a good year. Got 2 wins. Decision over Arnold Allen in the main event. KO over the Korean Zombie in the main event. Pretty status quo for Holloway. Just beating guys that aren't named Volkanovski. That's what he does. So not much to say about Max Holloway, but he had a good year. Another fighter that also had a good year is Corey Sandhagen. He's going in good year, of course, as well. Another 2 wins and 2 wins in main event spotlights. These ones were both decisions instead of Max Holloway, who got 1 KO. But Corey Sandhagen dominated Marlon Vera in March. San Antonio main event. Almost got robbed because one judge scored it for Vera. Then he fights Rob Font. Bit of a boring performance, but still dominant. Beats like a top 10 guy 50-45, so great win for him there. And he's looking at either 1 win and probably 1 win away from a title shot. So you got to say it's a good year for Corey Sandhagen. But another fighter that had a great year is Islam Makhachev. He's gone at the top of great year. Islam Makhachev entered the year coming off a great title-winning performance against Charles Oliveira. Then he fights Volkanovski in Australia in February and wins a close decision. Like, obviously, the most talk going out of that was how good Volk did. There really wasn't a lot of credit talk for Islam. People weren't going, look how great Islam looked. A lot of people were basically saying, you almost lost to a featherweight, that's tough. Then he was booked to fight Oliveira in October. The rematch, probably going to settle that there. He probably would have won. But then Volk comes in on short notice and he gets head kick KO'd. So it was a great year for Islam Makhachev. 2 wins, 2 title defenses, but they were against the same guy. So I just can't put him in fighter of the year when you beat the same guy twice and that's your only wins. But still, the KO of Volkanovski was probably I'd say the 2nd best single win someone had this year. But probably the most impressive one, I would say, in terms of the finish. But we move on to another fighter, and we're going to go with Israel Adesanya. He's going in a rough/mixed year because it really was a mixed year for Adesanya. He had the highest of highs with that Pereira KO, winning his belt back on top of the world, finally conquered his rival, and then he had the lowest of lows, getting like 49-46 and humiliated by Sean Strickland, exposed on the internet by MMA Guru, and just had a rough back end of the year. So he can't be going in good year, even though he had an amazing KO. You just can't. It's what have you done for me recently? Like when your most recent fight is a 49-46 loss to Sean Strickland and you got humiliated, you just can't be above this tier. So another fighter that we have here is Leon Edwards. He's going in great year, above Tom Aspinall, but behind Makhachev, because he had 2 decisions, 2 title defenses, which were great. So he came into the year coming off that win over Usman. A lot of people calling it a fluke. A lot of people not giving him a lot of chance in the rematch. I, for one, didn't pick him. I kind of had a feeling he was going to win, but I do a picking competition with my friends, and they both picked him. So I was like, I better pick Usman just to mix it up a bit. But he did beat Usman clearly 49-46, or 4 rounds to 1 in my books. Arguably 5-0 if you rewatch that fight. There wasn't a single round that you could clearly say was definitely Usman. So it could have been 49-45 in my opinion. But he got a 48-46 over Usman. Then he takes a while off, comes back and fights Colby in December. 49-46 is him. Clear 4 rounds to 1, defends his belt for the 2nd time. Pretty good year. Obviously not the most statement-making performances in terms of the finishes, but I'd say you can't knock that as a year. 2 title defenses against different opposition, against the number 1 and number 2 welterweights in the world. You got to give him credit for that. But another fighter that had a decent year or a good year is Roman Kopylov. He's going in breakout year. I think Roman Kopylov had a great year. He got 3 wins, 3 finishes, all in the 2nd round. Great stuff from Roman Kopylov. TKO'd Punahele Soriano in January. KO'd Claudio Ribeiro with a head kick in July, and then TKO'd, what's his name? Missing his name. Josh Fremd in September with a body shot. So got 3 second rounds TKOs. Great stuff from Roman Kopylov. Not ranked, so he's going to be at the bottom of breakout year because obviously he didn't make the top 15. But I do think this guy is going to be a top 15 fighter next year. But we move on to another fighter that had a good year, and I'm going to go with Jon Jones. I'm putting him in great year. Look, if you win, if you get a title fight win, you got to go in great year. I'm kind of stuttering here, but like, look, even though I want to put him lower down, I just can't put a guy who won the belt up a division in the same tier as a guy that won a decision against Basil Hafez. Like, you can't be doing that. And you can't put him in breakout year because he's fucking been in the sport for 15 years. So, I'll put him in great year. He's going at the bottom, though. Came back, got an impressive submission quickly over Cyril Gane, but it was the end of the year kind of made it a rough one for him. Even though he didn't lose or didn't fight, he got injured, pulled out of the Stipe fight, and now there's a new heavyweight that everyone's saying would beat you. So it's kind of and you're probably not going to fight him. So it's tough for Jon Jones, but still, if you look at just that one win that he had, you got to put him in great year. But another fighter that we have is Elvis Brenner. He's going in breakout year as well. Again, didn't break into the rankings, but got 3 wins and got 2 of them by KO. So Elvis Brenner came in, won a close decision against Zubaira Tukhugov in February. Then he fights Guram Kutateladze on short notice. Actually kept it pretty competitive with him for the most part, and then finishes him in the 3rd round by TKO. And then he KOs a debuting guy in Brazil to finish off the year in November. So I'd say it was a pretty solid year for Elvis Brenner. Definitely made a statement, and I do think he'll be ranked next year. But another fighter that had a good year was Sean O'Malley. He's going in great year, above Jon Jones, but behind Justin Gaethje. Look, 1 win, 1 finish, won the belt. Like, you got to give him credit for that. Beat Aljamain Sterling by TKO in the 2nd round. Didn't do much else, but that win alone, you got to have him great year. If you win a title, that's where you got to be. But another fighter that we have is Erin Blanchfield. She's going to go in good year, ahead of Della, I'm going to say, just because, again, breakout year, like, she kind of had a bit of a name around it. I know she wasn't, like, highly ranked, and now she's broken into the top 5, but in women's MMA, it's pretty easy to break into the top 5, let's be honest. Like, she came in, beat Jessica Andrade on short notice. She was meant to fight Tyler Santos in February, but then she fights Tyler Santos later in August, wins a decision. Like, I just can't say it was, like, a breakout year, you know what I'm saying? Like, everyone's not saying, like, geez, 2023, the year of, like, Erin Blanch, like, you're talking the year of Sean Strickland, the year of Islam Makhachev, the year of Leon Edwards, the year of Erin Blanchfield. Like, no one's saying that. Like, she just had a solid year. She did break into the top 5, but she was already ranked in the top 15, and people kind of expected her to do that anyway, so it's not like she really just came out of nowhere and just steamrolled competition. But another fighter that had a good year is Alexa Grasso. She's going to go in great year too. I'm going to put her ahead of Jon Jones, you know. Put her ahead of Jon Jones. Alexa Grasso came in, massive underdog against Shevchenko, won by submission in the 4th round, comeback, and then gets a draw in September in the rematch. Arguably could have won. If that judge hadn't scored it a 10-8, she would have lost, which she should have lost by that scorecard, but there definitely was an argument to say she won that fight, but she gets a draw, retains her title. But just in terms of the position she was in at the start of the year and the end of the year, she's gone from like pretty much a nobody in the women's like MMA side of things to the number 2 or number 1 women's pound for pound fighter, and yeah, like dethroning a long reigning division champion. So great stuff from Grasso. But another fighter that we have here is Alexander Volkanovski. He's going at the top of rough/mixed year because his rough/mixed year was better than others. I'm also moving Adesanya ahead of Andrade. But Volkanovski started off the year with a positive. Even though it wasn't a win, it was a positive. He gained a lot out of that decision loss to Makhachev. Everyone's like, yeah, this guy's just going to steamroll everyone at featherweight. And he steamrolled Yair Rodriguez. So if he'd stopped there, and if that was his year, I would probably have him in a great year, honestly. Even though with a loss, he would be in great year. But when you get head kick KO'd, and now people are talking about you're about to get dethroned and lose your belt, and you're on a downfall, it's a tough one. So 2 losses, 1 win. I just can't have you in good or great year for Volk. But yeah, the Yair win was phenomenal. but I just can't have you above that when you got head kick KO'd. But another fighter that we have here is, I know I'm going to contradict myself with this exact fighter I'm about to talk about. Alex Pereira, he had a great year. I'm putting him above Leon Edwards, just behind Makhachev. I know I'm contradicting myself because Volk got head kick KO'd, Pereira got KO'd, but the difference is Pereira got KO'd at the start. Volk ended his year by getting KO'd. Like, Pereira got KO'd at the start of the year, then turns around and beats Blachowicz by decision, and then beats Yuri Prohaska by TKO. Like, he finished the year on a high. Volk finished the year on a low. So, that's, I think, you know what I mean? Like, Pereira firmly, like, made that, like, knockout against Adesanya mean pretty much nothing, because I know it means something, like, it's a loss on your record, but at the end of the day, no one's talking about, geez, 2023 was a rough year, Pereira, man. He got KO'd by Adesanya, lost his belt. People are going, yeah, he came back after that and won 2 fights up a division and now is a double division champion in 7 UFC fights. Like, I think Pereira definitely had a great year. I'm putting him above Leon because I think just winning that belt up a division, but I'm going to put him behind Makhachev. Even though he had 2 wins, only one of them was a title win. But yeah, still great stuff and a great year from Alex Pereira. But another fighter is Kamaru Usman. He's gone in a rough year. 2 losses. It's tough. Lost a decision against Leon Edwards, trying to get his belt back, and then lost a majority decision to Khamzat Chimaev in October on short notice. Put up a great fight. Arguably won 2 of the rounds, but there was a 10-8 in the first, so you just can't have him in a good year. No, when you don't get a win, you just can't. You got to be in this tier. So Usman had a tough one. I think he will rebound. I think he will get another win. I don't think he's on the downfall. Like, just look at the wins. Look at the losses. Leon Edwards, who looks like he could only be beaten by Shavkat potentially, is like the only guy that looks threatening to him right now. And then Khamzat Chimaev on short notice. Like, that really ain't that bad, but still, 0-2, got to be in there. But another fighter that had a great year is Alessandro Pantoja. I'm going to put him above Leon Edwards in great year. He won the belt against Brandon Moreno, and then he defended the belt in a rematch against Brandon Royval. Pretty simple. Won the belt and defended it in the same year. It's a great year for you. I know they're both opposition that he's already fought, but still, incredible year for Alessandro Pantoja. You got to put him in there. But another fighter that we have here is Diego Lopez. He's going in breakout year, and I'm going to put him above Ian Gary. You know what? And I'm going to put him above Almeida as well. Just because, even though this guy probably gained the most out of any fighter that is still unranked. Like, somehow this guy's not ranked. Came in on short notice, almost beat Movsar Evloev, gave him his toughest fight of his career. Almost subbed him multiple times. Turns around a few months later, gets one of the sickest submission transitions you'll ever see against Gavin Tucker. Got a sick jumped to the triangle, gets an armbar, walk-off submission. And then he TKOs Pat Sabatini in the first round in MSG on a pay-per-view. This was a great year for Diego Lopez, a breakout year. He came in May, and then in 7 months, from May to November, or May to December, he's now talked about as one of the most exciting fighters in the sport and a future star of the featherweight division. Like, pretty solid fucking year for Diego Lopez. But another fighter that we have here is Shavkat Rakhmonov. He's going in breakout year just behind Dricus du Plessis. Because, again, 2 wins, 2 finishes, 2 submissions. Subbed Jeff Neal in one of the best fights of the year. Great stuff. Got tested, came back, got a win. And then he subbed Wonderboy in the second round. Not the most entertaining performance, but still a great win from Shavkat Rakhmonov. Great stuff for him. And now he's looking at probably either 1 fight away or will get a title shot next. So great stuff for him. But another fighter that had a solid year is Lupi Godinez. She's going to go in the bottom of breakout year. Won 4 fights this year. Broke into the top 15. She's, I think, ranked number 11, I believe. And she's booked to fight again in March. So she stayed incredibly active. I think she beat... Let me try and rack my brain here for women's MMA knowledge. She beat Emily Ducote. She beat Tabitha Ricci. She beat Elise Reed, and then she beat one other chick, I forget. But Tabitha Ricci was her most recent win. That's the one that broke her into the things. But all of her wins were pretty impressive. There was, I think, a decision there. What was the other one? I'm trying to remember. It was on UFC 287. I know who it is, but I just can't fucking remember. Anyway, yeah, she won 4 fights. Great stuff. Looked pretty good for most of the part. And now she's fighting a top, 7 opponent in her next fight. So great year from Lupe Godinez. Another fighter that we have here is Tony Ferguson. He's going in a rough year. It's tough for T Ferg, man. I love the man, but he did have a rough year. He lost twice, got subbed by Bobby Green in the third, and then lost 30-27 to Pimmel at the end of the year. It's tough for Tony Ferguson. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. It's sad. But we move on to the final fighter, and of course the fighter of the year, if you couldn't figure it out already, is JP Bays. No, I'm kidding. It's it's Sean Strickland, of course, the fighter of the year, the fighter that made 2023 what it was, the fighter that really exemplified, if that's a word, exemplified what 2023 was. Really, the year of the upsets, the year of just crazy shit happening. Sean Strickland started off the year coming in on short notice after a 2-fight losing streak, mind you. Got KO'd by Pereira, lost a close decision against Cannonier. Comes in on short notice, beats Nasruddin Imavov 4-1 on 2 judges' scorecards. Then it was out for a bit because he couldn't find an opponent. Gets Abbas Magomedov, turns him back, gets a TKO in the second round, and then 2 months later fights Israel Adesanya, who's coming off the best win of his career, arguably, and 49-46 dominates him, wins the title, and then finishes off the year by getting all the headlines at a pay-per-view that he wasn't even on. Fights Dricus Du Plessis in the crowd, and he's now booked for his first title defense in January. This guy made all the headlines this year. He had all the talk. He was the fighter of the year in 2023, let's be honest. He didn't get the KOs. He got a finish over Abbas Magomedov, but just that Adesanya win was the best single win of the year in my books. And he just made the biggest splash. Who the fuck was talking about Sean Strickland as a title contender at the end of 2022? And now he's the fucking champ about to defend his belt in less than a month's time. Great year from Sean Strickland. I don't think many people disagree. He definitely was the fighter of the year. I know you could go, oh, but Makhachev finished Volkanovski, oh, but Pereira won a second belt. I don't care, man. Sean Strickland was the fighter of the year, let's be honest. But I can't be bothered adjusting this. I know I usually do adjustments at the end of the video. I can't be fucked. Just let me know in the comments if you guys agree what changes you would make. I'm open to them. I know MMA Guru just did this video. I'm not copying him. Get off his dick. For those that are gonna be like, oh, you're copying people's videos. Bro, this is not an individual idea. It's a fucking tier list. It's a fighter of the year tier list. So I've gone on a bit of a rant there. I know most people probably aren't going to say I'm copying him, but just because of the fact that he did just make the video, I know some little dickhead's going to be like, oh, you copied MMA Guru. I watched his video this morning. In my opinion, he got it wrong. He put John Jones in C tier and shit. I wanted to change up the tiers and stuff because I know his was all on fighters that had a good year. I wanted to kind of mix it up and make it a bit because look at this. You can't say that I know he's saying in comparison, but I think this is a better way of doing it. I think you have the fighter of the year. You have fighters that are great years for the titles, the ones that got the people that won belts. You have breakout fighters. I think that's it's stupid to be putting fighters unranked fighters on the same tier as guys that won titles. That's just what I'm saying. But still, yeah, I think I did this video pretty well. Let me know if you disagree or not. We got more videos coming soon, of course. Let me know what other videos you guys want to see in the comments. But the uploads will continue. Keep it locked in on the channel. Turn on notifications. Follow my Instagram, Left Lane MMA. And yeah, peace out, everybody.